Welcome to This Explainer. If you're with us today, chances are you're a seasoned genealogist, a dedicated historian, or, someone who just absolutely lives for the thrill of the archival hunt. Today, we're going to unpack the fascinating historical and genealogical treasures hidden inside a single, seemingly ordinary folder, Revolutionary War Pension File W3971. We aren't just looking at old paper today. We're looking at how a nation's bureaucracy inadvertently preserved the life, service, and legacy of an American patriot. So here's our roadmap. We're going to start at the jacket to enter the archives, prove his service, dive into proving the marriage, trace the heirs, and finally look at the ultimate archival significance of it all. Part 1. The Jacket. Entering the archives. Take a look at this beautifully simple envelope jacket for file W3971. It establishes our core subjects right out of the gate: North Carolina soldier John Fields and his widow, Mary. And really, this sets the stage for what we'll soon see is a decades-long bureaucratic journey, one initiated not just by the soldier, but by the family he left behind. Part 2. Proving Service. Sergeant John Fields. Now, the absolute crucial point here is establishing the timeline. John Fields enlisted on September 20th, 1775 and the 2nd North Carolina Regiment for a very precise one-year term. And he completed that term to the exact day, discharging on September 20th, 1776. Decades later, thanks to the sweeping pension acts of the 1830s, his pension was officially allowed on January 15th, 1833. Sadly, he only got to enjoy that hard-earned federal recognition for just over 2 years before passing away on September 1st, 1835. This right here is literally what every military historian dreams of finding in an archive: an actual physical discharge slip. It's dated at Salisbury, September 20th, 1776. It explicitly states that John Fields of Captain John Armstrong's company is discharged from the American service, having completely served his time. And, crucially, it's signed by Colonel Alexander Martin of the 2nd Regiment. I mean, the preservation of this fragile slip of paper from 1776 all the way to the 1830s, when they actually needed it to prove his claim, is nothing short of a miracle. Beyond just those dates and signatures, the administrative summary in this file gives us some vital biographical context. It establishes his birth on April 3rd, 1752, up in Hanover County, Virginia. And like a lot of veterans of that era, he migrated, eventually settling down near Spring Garden in Rockingham County, North Carolina, after his service. Also, note that rank. He served as a sergeant during that one-year enlistment in the Continental Army. Part 3. Proven the marriage. The parole evidence. So under the Act of July 7th, 1838, which granted pensions to certain widows of Revolutionary War soldiers, administrators had to navigate 3 incredibly strict bureaucratic steps. First, re-verify the service. Second, prove the marriage actually took place. And third, prove Mary's ongoing widowhood and her identity. Now, step 2, that is exactly where they hit a massive genealogical brick wall. This 1853 certification from Lyndon Swaim, the Guilford County clerk, well, that's the brick wall itself. He states that after a super careful examination of his office files, he absolutely cannot find any record of the marriage between John Fields and Mary Gibson, which supposedly took place in 1776. Now, as we all know, back then, courthouse records were constantly lost, unrecorded, or just plain destroyed. So what does a family do when the government demands proof that the government itself failed to keep? Well, they turned to the community. As we see repeated here, they had to rely entirely on parole evidence, meaning sworn affidavits from living neighbors, to legally satisfy the federal government that John and Mary were, in fact, husband and wife. And we get to see that oral tradition in action. This is a sworn affidavit from an 80-year-old neighbor named Nathaniel Dodd. He swears before a justice of the peace that he lived as a neighbor to John and Mary for about 50 years. He was actually present at both of their funerals, and he boldly validates that it was just common knowledge they were married in 1776. This single document completely replaces the missing marriage bond, proving that, honestly, sometimes community memory is the most powerful genealogical record of all. Part 4. Tracing the heirs. The ultimate beneficiary. Because Mary Fields passed away in 1844, right before her claim was fully settled, those pension arrears became payable to her surviving children. Now, to prove who those children were, the family submitted an original artifact. We can compare that physical piece, a torn handwritten family record, with the 20th century typed summary from the War Department. It beautifully illustrates how the government preserved a fragile family heirloom and translated its vital genealogical data into an official federal summary over a century later. From those fragmented papers, the War Department managed to reconstruct this incredible table of John and Mary's 7 children. As historians, we can see exact birth dates ranging from Anna in 1777 all the way to John in 1794. But what's even more fascinating are the marriage alliances listed here. We see the Fields family intertwining with the Strong family twice and the Scales family twice. This single table connects multiple North Carolina lineages, making it an absolute cornerstone document for regional genealogists. But we have to talk about the heartbreaking reality of 19th century life expectancy. Despite having 7 children documented in that beautiful family record, by the time the final pension settlement was being processed in the early 1850s, only one heir remained alive to claim the legacy. As this administrative record pretty plainly states, the arrears of $60 per annum for Mary's final years of life were ultimately secured by Richard H. Scales, who was the administrator of the estate, for the sole benefit of Jeremiah Fields, explicitly named as her only surviving child. All that paperwork, all those affidavits, the whole shebang, it all ultimately funneled down to Jeremiah. Part 5. Archival Significance. Just look at the dates on this pension office inquiry log. They span from 1907 all the way to 1939. We're talking about decades of descendants, from places as far-flung as Tennessee, writing to the federal government just to learn about Sergeant Fields. It really proves that this pension file transcends mere bureaucracy. It wasn't just a vehicle for a $60 payout. It became this perpetual bridge to the past, actively used by generations to find their roots. The sheer volume of history locked within this single docket is absolutely staggering, and it begs the ultimate question, doesn't it? If a single $60 a year pension claim can inadvertently preserve a soldier's exact birth dates, an entire network of local marriages, and a handwritten discharge slip signed in 1776, what other incredible American stories are quietly waiting in the dark for you to decode in the archives? I'll leave you to ponder that for your next research trip. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer on the remarkable case file of Sergeant John Fields.